Empire.
Almost had a Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins shootout, but Sunday's performance could be a sign of things to come. Welcome to Football Jones Podcast. I am Mike Jones. Thanks for coming back for another episode. Read me at usatoday.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByMikeJones. Yes, talking about the showdown between first-round quarterbacks Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins. That shootout was cut short because Dwayne Haskins got hurt, but it was a strong showing of those two as they went back and forth for the first, quarter or so of that game. But I want to have my buddy Grant Paulsen from 106.7 The Fan in DC on because he covers all things DC, but has been following Dwayne Haskins' journey as a rookie. And I know I have a lot of Redskins fans that are my followers, so wanted to treat you guys to a discussion about Haskins, his prospects, and how he has measured up so far to Daniel Jones, who the Giants took over him a few picks before Washington selected Haskins. So we're going to get right to it now, me and Grant Paulsen. All right, now very happy to be joined with my old buddy Grant Paulsen of 106.7 The Fan in DC. If you are not following him already, he is a must follow. You should be listening to his show every single day, full of knowledge and all sports. But we used to cover the Redskins together for a number of years. He's still very plugged into that team. So I wanted to talk to you about Dwayne Haskins and Daniel Jones. It's unfortunate that Haskins got hurt because it looked like we were about to have a shootout. That was going to be an exciting game. But I know you've been, following Haskins' journey throughout his rookie year here. So I want to talk to you about what you're learning about him, what you're seeing. And, those two are always going to be linked together. But what did you take away from yesterday, and what are you seeing from Haskins?
Well, let's start with Haskins. It is a shame, Mike, that he got hurt because he was putting together a second straight really strong performance. What I've seen from him is major growth. I mean, if you go back to the first time he played against the New York Giants in relief off the bench, he threw 3 interceptions, including a pick 6. And, a half season's worth of playing games later, he's got the same number of picks in the rest of his action. He's making better mistakes. He's getting through some reads. A big thing, though, is his accuracy over the last couple of weeks has grown by leaps and bounds, and that's what had worried me. I thought it was borderline alarming early on when he was playing. It's just the mechanics weren't very good. His footwork lacked, and at times he would kind of mechanically break down even in clean pockets, and he would sail balls well over wide open receivers. But you're seeing that way less now. He had an excellent game against the Eagles in a shootout that the Redskins lost 2 weeks ago, and then was off to a tremendous start, completed his first 10 passes on 2 drives to lead Washington down the field for touchdowns against the Giants on Sunday. So he's getting more comfortable. I think Kevin O'Connell is really calling an offense that's more friendly for him. They're still not throwing a lot on first down, so they're setting him up at times to have little success by running it too often on first and second and having third and long. However, I think what you've seen is they've gone to some quick and hot stuff where the ball's out of his hand for shorter and intermediate throws. And I think when they go up tempo and they do that, it puts him in a position to succeed. So all the way around, coaching, and him in the pocket quarterbacking, been successful. The other thing is he's way more athletic, I think, than people know, and that's been helpful too.
So what do you think? Why did it take so long? Was it Jay not catering to him enough? Was it Haskins not being plugged in enough? Was it just the learning process? What do you think?
So it's a great question. I think it's a little bit of all of those things, right? I think number one, Jay Gruden as a head coach was handed a quarterback that he didn't necessarily want and didn't want to draft. From everything that I know, this was not Jay Gruden's pick. So I think initially his plan was to not play Haskins. He thought he was immensely raw, which he was, and wasn't ready to play, which he was not. I don't think Gruden was wrong in that regard. Also, Jay Gruden was coaching for his job. I think people forget, he got fired 5 games into the season, but he had to win football games. And Dwayne Haskins was nowhere near capable of helping him to do that in September and October. So he was going to ride with Case Keenum or Colt McCoy or both as long as he could. As you saw yesterday when Keenum came in, I mean, he's very capable. He led the Redskins back from 2 touchdowns. They almost knocked off the Giants. I think they'd have a better record than they do if Case Keenum had played. But this is a developmental year, and Haskins' well-being is more important, so they're doing the right thing. But I think it all started by the fact that Haskins was kind of foisted upon Gruden and his staff. So initially there was maybe some pushback where they weren't going to use him right away because they were coaching for their jobs. They knew that a bad season would lead to them losing their gigs, number one. Number two, I think a lot of this was on Haskins, specific to how raw he actually was. I've been around a lot of young quarterbacks and watched a lot of others around the league. I don't know that I've ever seen a guy that was as far away initially in terms of being an early first-round pick of looking like he belonged than Dwayne Haskins. He was lost for a little while. Part of that may have been a lack of reps. Part of that may have been that he didn't get the first team work that he needed. But it's just exactly what it was. I mean, as I mentioned, he came off the bench against the Giants and then against the Vikings. And, I mean, he looked like he was 10 miles away from shore to even being a serviceable NFL quarterback. He's now at a point where he's playing well. I think if you comp him to Kyler Murray or to Daniel Jones, he's still behind those guys. Mm-hmm. But really, if you just watch one of these games, I think you see an NFL passer who's a starter in this league. And that was not the case for many, many weeks. And the last thing I'll say is that there were rumblings, and this is not stuff that I read, but stuff that I heard from people in and around the building, where early on, he needed to work harder and come in earlier and stay later. And maybe when you're a backup, it's hard to do that. Maybe when you're a third-string quarterback, it's hard to motivate yourself to act like you're the CEO of the outfit. But I'm not sure if he's doing more of that, or it seems like it based on his performance. And you hear less of the skepticism resonating from the building. Maybe he's winning some of his critics, even at Redskins Park, over with some of these recent performances. And I'm not going to sit here, Mike, and act like he's completely arrived. A lot of people in town are doing that, and a lot of people in town who have backed him are kind of throwing themselves a victory parade today because he has had 2 good games in a row. But you know this as well as I do. December football for irrelevant teams and largely irrelevant games can be very misleading and at times can be fool's gold. So it's awesome to see that he's playing better. But he's done it against 2 bad defenses, including yesterday against the Giants team that average has given up a 107 quarterback rating to non-Redskins quarterbacks this year. So I think that's important to note. But early on, it didn't matter who he played. He wasn't looking sharp. And now he looks really good against bad defenses, which is a huge improvement.
Yeah, I always felt like 2 things were really unfortunate for him. One, like we said, the coaching staff, they were in win now mode. They wanted, an impact defensive player with that 15th pick and didn't want to, take him. And then also, I felt like if Alex Smith had been healthy, him working alongside him and behind him would have really benefited him, because I think he would have been able to see how a pro, works every single day. I'm not saying that Case Keenum and Colt McCoy don't, but I think Alex Smith is more of the take you under your wing type of guy. From what I gather, late in the year, he's been spending more time with Alex. I just wish that earlier in the year he could have had that. And then also, maybe, since Alex wasn't there and wasn't healthy, should Jay have just gone ahead and designed this offense around him from OTAs on, so that way he was getting all the reps and coached up to be as effective as he possibly could have been?
So I agree with all that. I mean, the one caveat would be that I think if Jay Gruden did that, he would have guaranteed his demise in a lot of ways. You could, I guess, on the outside looking in. Well, yeah, I think that's fair. But in his mind, you know how coaches think. I think he's trying to save his job. And what he wanted to do was win as many games as possible, which is why I think the bigger maybe picture point is they should have done one of 2 things this offseason. When they decided they were going to draft Dwayne Haskins above his head, they should have either made the decision before that Jay Gruden was out and they were starting with a first-year head coach that they could marry to Haskins schematically, or they should have told Jay Gruden, we're giving you 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. And at that point, he can make the best decision for the organization, the best decision for the young quarterback, and not necessarily worry about himself or his staff nearly as much. Because I think when you're a lame duck set up in a lot of ways to fail, and you're told at the same time as you have to play this quarterback, who, by the way, is going to be terrible initially because he is as raw as meat that just got thrown on the grill out of the refrigerator. And, oh, by the way, don't have a bad record or you're losing your job. I mean, it's a tough spot to put a coach in. So I understand where Jay Gruden was coming from. I know a lot of people will make him the villain in all of this. I don't really view it that way. The other part on Alex Smith, I think, is completely true. But, and I don't want to be unfair to Haskins, but I can just tell you, you got to want to shadow those guys. And I think Alex Smith would have been great in that regard around training camp and the preseason and all that. But as you said, you had McCoy, you had Keenum. Maybe the competition made it difficult, though. Maybe those guys, as you said, aren't as likely to just grab you and take you under their wing when you're trying to beat them out. I don't really know. But I'll give Haskins just a ton of credit in this regard. What I wanted to see was him flashing. I wanted to see what I call normal rookie quarterback stuff. I'll take bad interceptions. I'll take pick sixes. I'll take bad reads. But I need to see the good, too. I want to see the flash moments where you look like you belong and you're going to be a tenured passer in this league. And for weeks and weeks and weeks, you just didn't see any of those. The last, really starting with the Carolina game, I think you got a couple. That was a month ago. He regressed a little bit after that, back to kind of what we had seen. But the last 2 weeks, he looks like an NFL passer who's a starter in this league. And I think it's a really good thing going into the offseason to give him that momentum. Would I tell you that I'm 100% confident that he's a future Pro Bowler and he's the franchise passer for a decade? No, again, I don't do that based on December production, but am I hopeful in a way that I wasn't before for Redskins fans? Unequivocally. Do I like what I see a million times more than I did when he first started playing? Absolutely.
Okay, so he created some pressure for himself after the draft when he said the league done messed up when Haskins was taking, so he kind of put himself in a spot there. But do you think he was right? Or have you not seen enough to know whether you would want Daniel Jones long-term or Haskins?
Well, as of right now, I think the Giants made the right pick, right? I think everyone seems to have gone where they did. I mean, yesterday in a game where Haskins, for the second time in a month, left and was on the sideline with an ankle injury. And he did play through that injury against the Green Bay Packers, obviously. Daniel Jones threw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, he sliced and diced the Redskins defense. Now, that's not a great defense, but they're certainly tougher to move the ball on generally than the Giants are, if you're just comparing the two guys. Jones did miss time in his own right, last couple of games, obviously, with Eli Manning at quarterback. So it's not like he's proven to be ultra durable. But you're talking about a guy right now that has 23 touchdowns and 11 picks in his rookie season. There's no doubt in my mind he's had a more impressive rookie year than Dwayne Haskins. I mean, he's got 3 4-touchdown, no interception games. Haskins' day that everyone kind of threw a party for a week ago was a 2-touchdown game when he threw for a couple hundred yards. So for Jones, I think anecdotally he's looked more, just move the ball more efficiently.
Right.
I think it's way too early to say who's going to have the better career. I'll say this. Jones lacks the arm strength that Haskins has. There were a couple throws yesterday he made late where he tried to drive a ball into a small window that were incomplete, and against better corners and a better secondary, probably get picked off. And Haskins has the cannon that he could drive those balls in. I think Jones is more accurate and is just kind of more naturally progressing through the offense at this juncture because he had more time in the offense.
Right.
So as of this moment, Jones is ahead of him. If I had to take one of those guys for the next several years, just based on what I've seen, I would say Jones is a much safer pick. But maybe Haskins still has the higher upside. But he certainly hasn't done anything to say. I mean, if you look at his, not just his numbers for the season, but even in these quote-unquote good games I'm talking about, there are games that quarterbacks have all the time. It's just that where he came from, I think, makes it so impressive. But, look, a month ago, if you would have asked me this, it wouldn't have even been close, or it's not even worth discussing. And now we can pose the question and kind of talk about it, which speaks to how far Haskins has come.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, so obviously Haskins is going to have a new coach, which I think is unfortunate for him that he's going to have to relearn everything all over unless they hire some defensive guy who wants to keep Kevin O'Connell as his OC. But what do you think? Who out there would be great for Haskins, so that way he can continue to have the best chance to develop and thrive in this league?
So I think there's a really good chance they go the route of coach so that they do keep Kevin O'Connell in place. And I think that would probably be best for his development. However, if you do that and he thrives and O'Connell is who they think he is, he'll be a head coach in a couple of years, and you're going to be bringing in another offensive coordinator at some point early in his career anyway. Mm-hmm. So you almost wonder, is it time to hire the best guy, even if that's an offensive mind, say Eric Bieniemy, who's going to put him in a good position to succeed and thrive right away? What I would do is one of two things. I think I'm leaning at this juncture toward keeping O'Connell and going defensive-minded with a veteran coach, whether that be offering the job to Ron Rivera. I happen to think he'll get a better offer than the Redskins and will take another job. Somebody like him, Todd Bowles, his name has come up. I think they should try to maybe go more accomplished, or someone who's had more success as a head coach, but a Mike Zimmer type hire, if you will. And then you find your young offensive minds as you need to when O'Connell leaves, and you promote a guy like a Kevin Stefanski like they have in Minnesota to work with Mike Zimmer that gets the most out of a Kirk Cousins. And in this case, that's Dwayne Haskins. I think that's the route I would go. But I also wouldn't be shy about looking at the college ranks. I think Haskins is most comfortable, it seems to me, when you spread the field and you kind of operate with tempo and you run a lot of short and intermediate stuff like I'm talking about, which you see on Saturdays a whole lot. And the league is trending in that direction, and I would have no problem with them going down to the college level, and whether it's Matt Rule or somebody like that, and hiring that guy and bringing a playbook not that different than maybe the one he was using a year ago to the NFL. I think those are a couple of things they'll consider. I think what they have to decide, though, Mike, is this. Am I going to hire a head coach with Dwayne Haskins in mind? In other words, you hire a coach theoretically, around here with the Redskins on average, it's once every couple of years or so, but this is a several-year commitment you're making for someone that's going to run your entire organization. Should you go into that search thinking that I have to hire someone based on Dwayne Haskins, or should you go into that search saying I need to hire the best head coach for 53 men in an entire organization that needs a culture set? And I would do it that way and then work back to hoping that they're a perfect fit for Dwayne Haskins. My hunch is that Dan Snyder, who put his neck on the line as an owner in a lot of ways to draft Haskins and is trying to prove himself correct, will go the opposite route, shrink his talent pool a little bit, and get someone who's going to do the best job to help Haskins. And look, if he flourishes, your team probably will as well. So that could work too. I just think you shrink your talent pool, and instead of having a lot of coaching options, suddenly you have about half as many. And generally, the more lottery tickets you're using to play, the better the chance you hit the jackpot.
Yeah, I just wish or hope that they do the right thing. Hire a strong team president first, and let that guy lead your coaching search instead of thinking that you were the best guy to hire this and then getting a GM or leaving, Bruce in place. Do it like a real NFL team does. Hire, a talent evaluator.
But don't you think, I'll ask you this, don't you think, and I have said all season for the record that I did think since about a month in, Bruce Allen was going to be out this year. I don't see him coming back to run the football operation. However, I'll kind of speak against myself here. I feel like if they were going to make that move, they would have made it already. Remember when Bruce was hired to replace Vinny Serrato, it was on December 17th. And you had, at that time, it was 3 weeks left in the season, and you had a coaching search that was basically already over. They had already hired Mike Shanahan at this time 10 years ago, and nobody knew it, but they'd already gone out and met with him and talked to him, and the whole thing was all but sealed. I guess my question to you is, if you're going to move on from Bruce, wouldn't you have already done it? Because someone's been making calls to start this head coaching search for weeks. I don't know who that is. I've been told it's not Eric Schaefer, and it's the many guys in the building that I've checked in with either no commented me or said, hey, I'm not really involved in that. I can't speak on it. But if it's not Bruce Allen, then it's probably either Snyder himself or some independent third party. But they fired Gruden on October 7th. Yep. I mean, they've talked to different candidates and their agents. If Bruce Allen's running that search, isn't that evidence that he's not going anywhere?
Yes, and that's the thing is I talked to somebody last week who told me don't be surprised if Bruce is still here, which, I mean, God bless him for resilience and durability and longevity. I don't know how he does it. People could be wrong, but that's what someone told me. And they've had some discussions with people in that building high up. And so that's why I said I wish they would do the right thing and hire a stronger team president. I guess never say never. There's still a chance. You never know if they talk to a sexy head coach and he says, no, I'm not coming unless Bruce is gone. And then Snyder makes his move. And then, but I think that would be like a Marvin Lewis type of guy or a Mike McCarthy type of guy. I don't know. But, again, wouldn't surprise me if Bruce is there. I just wish that they would give themselves the best chance to succeed by doing things the right way. But again, we've seen for 2 decades now, they don't do stuff the right way.
No, and I'm not holding my breath necessarily that they're going to suddenly have an epiphany and get a general manager. I mean, they had one for a couple of years, and obviously Scott McLuhan, they would tell you, had his flaws and his warts, but his 2 years here were the most successful 2 years that they've had in a long time in terms of stringing together back-to-back competitive campaigns. Now, a lot of people in the building will say it was kind of a coincidence that he was there when that was happening. I'd say the results kind of spoke for themselves. But they just don't like having a football operator run their front office, a football person from outside of their building. Bruce Allen likes to get his guys around, sit around the table, and have this kind of the good old boy club of the dudes that have been there for a bunch of years. And it just hasn't worked. But I don't know that it's going to change.
Yeah, you're right. All right, GP. Well, thanks so much for your time and insight, man. This was fun. We got to do it again. And I guess it's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out for these guys.
Yeah, well, my pleasure. And there's going to be a lot of things happening with this organization in the coming weeks, so I'm sure we will chat. Keep up the great work, man. I always enjoy not only the podcast, but everything you're doing in print and online.
Thanks, GP. I'll see you, man. And Merry Christmas to you.
Same to you, buddy. Happy holidays.
All right, hope you guys have a great day. Hope you enjoyed that episode there. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out for the Redskins. And also Daniel Jones, we didn't talk about that. He could be playing for a new head coach and having to start over again as well. We'll see what happens. Black Monday is looming. The Redskins already out of their coach. And Pat Shurmur could be on his way out as well. We will see. But anyway, hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you. We'll talk to you later on this week. Again, read me at usatoday.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByMikeJones. Email me at mjones@usatoday.com. Go on the podcast, download, subscribe, leave me a review, and tell your friends to come listen too. Thanks, and I'll talk to you soon.